It started like a celebration and ended up in the disappearance of 3 women in one night. June 6, 1992, in Springfield, Missouri, was a hot summer night filled with caps flying, laughter, and high schoolers dreaming big. Graduation day at Kickapoo High School had just wrapped up, and 18-year-old Stacy McCall and 19-year-old Suzie Streeter were ready to start the next chapter of their lives. But by morning, something terrible had happened, something that still hasn't been explained more than 30 years later.
The plan was simple. Stacy and Suzie were supposed to spend the night at a friend's house after the graduation parties. They had even packed overnight bags, but when their house got too crowded, they made a last-minute decision to head to Suzie's house instead. It seemed like the safer choice. Suzie lived with her mom, 47-year-old Sherrill Levitt, a well-liked and private hairdresser who had just moved them into a small home on East Delmer Street about 2 months before.
Suzie was known for her tough spirit. She had a bit of a rebellious past, dropping out of high school for a time, but she had gotten back on track and graduated on time. Her mom, Sherrill, had worked hard to provide stability for her daughter after leaving a difficult marriage. The two were rebuilding their lives, and things were looking hopeful. Stacy, on the other hand, was the gentle, quiet one, polite, responsible, and very close to her family. She had planned to spend the next day with her mom at a water park.
The morning of June 7, around 9 a.m., friends began calling and even stopping by. Stacy's mom, Janice McCall, tried reaching her daughter but got no answer. She eventually drove to Suzie's house, where the scene was bizarre. All 3 women's purses were sitting neatly inside, their cars were parked outside, and their shoes had been taken off. Suzie's dog, Cinnamon, was agitated and barking, but there were no signs of a struggle. Except something was off. The porch light globe had been shattered.
Janice noticed the beds looked like they'd been slept in. The TV was on and playing static. Cigarettes and coffee cups were still on the table, but no one was there. While inside, a message played on the answering machine. It was strange and possibly disturbing, but someone accidentally deleted it before the investigators could hear it. At the time, Janice thought they might have just gone out quickly, but as hours passed, it became clear something bad had happened.
Police were eventually called that evening, but by then, friends and family had already gone through the house, unknowingly disturbing a potential crime scene. Officers found no sign of forced entry, no blood, and no broken furniture. It was like they had just disappeared into thin air. The only physical clue? That broken porch light, and the weird phone calls made to the house in the early morning, described as sexual and strange.
The theories came in fast. Some believed the girls had been abducted that night by someone who followed them from the graduation party. Others suspected that someone had been watching the house and waited for them to return. Police looked in every possible lead, including convicted criminals that were active in the area at the time. One name stood out, Robert Craig Cox, a former Army Ranger and convicted kidnapper who had a connection to Springfield.
Cox had been arrested in Florida for holding a woman at knife point and had lived in Springfield before. He claimed to have been with his girlfriend at church the morning of June 7, but she later recanted, saying he made her lie. In 1997, Cox gave a chilling interview to a journalist, saying he knew the women were dead and that their bodies would never be found, but he refused to give further details unless his mother died. Police couldn't charge him, but they've never ruled him out.
Another chilling detail came years later, when a tipster claimed the bodies were buried underneath the hospital garage being built around the time of the disappearance. Ground-penetrating radar even picked up 3 anomalies consistent with graves. But because the tip wasn't backed up by stronger evidence, authorities decided not to dig. That spot, just beneath the concrete, still haunts investigators and locals alike.
Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy's photos are still pinned to bulletin boards in Missouri. Their case has been featured on America's Most Wanted, 2020, and People magazine investigates. Despite hundreds of leads, dozens of suspects, and more than 3 decades of searching, their disappearance remains unsolved.
Stacy's parents kept her room untouched for years, filled with her favorite stuffed animals, school awards, and a graduation gown she never got to pack away. Suzie's brother had long believed that whoever took them was someone they knew, someone who knocked on the door that night and was let in without hesitation.
The Springfield Three didn't just vanish. They left a hole in a community that still aches for answers. The smallest details from that night, the broken light, the static on the TV, the erased message have become pieces of a puzzle no one has ever solved. Whether buried, hidden, or lost to time, their story still echoes.
Until someone comes forward or the right piece of evidence is uncovered, the fate of the Springfield Three will remain one of the darkest and most mysterious chapters in Missouri's history. And if you like strange crime stories like this, check out the video on your screen now.